What if I told you that $1,000 piece of electronics dangling in your ice hole is the main reason you're going home empty-handed? It sounds crazy, right? We bought these things to find fish, to eliminate dead water, to guarantee success. But today, we're talking about why blindly trusting your fish finder, your flasher, or your live sonar in the winter is a massive mistake. By the end of this video, you are going to understand what that screen isn't telling you, and more importantly, how to fix your approach. The real secret to winter success isn't in what you see on the display, but in understanding what you don't see. It's a total game changer. So let me ask you this, and I want you to be honest in the comments. Do you think all this modern technology has made us lazier, maybe even worse, anglers? Let's get into it. Let's be real, the sonar revolution in ice fishing has completely changed everything. 20 years ago, we showed up with an auger, a paper map of the lake, and a good dose of hope. We relied on our knowledge of structure, seasonal patterns, and pure angler's intuition. Now we've become completely dependent on seeing that bright red or yellow line on a screen before we even bother to drop a lure. It's become a crutch. We equate seeing fish with a good spot and a blank screen with a dead spot. We've been taught that the electronics never lie. This belief, this habit of trusting the screen over our own fishing sense, is exactly the trap so many of us fall into. And that trap is most effective, most brutal, during the winter when the fish play by a completely different set of rules. First, let's tackle the biggest mental hurdle, the empty screen fallacy. You drill a perfect hole on a prime spot, drop your transducer, and get nothing. A flat bottom line, and that's it. The immediate instinct is to write it off as a dead hole and move on. This is mistake number one. In winter, fish are incredibly lethargic. Their metabolism is in the tank. They aren't actively cruising around. Instead, they often press their bellies right to the bottom, conserving energy. When a big walleye or a jumbo perch is sitting perfectly still and tight to the lake bed, it becomes nearly invisible to your sonar. It blends in with the bottom return, especially on a soft or cluttered bottom. Your sonar's dead zone, that first 6 inches to a foot above the bottom, is a total blind spot. And guess where the biggest, smartest fish often hang out? Exactly. You could be sitting on top of the fish of a lifetime, and your screen will confidently tell you that you're wasting your time. The truth is, a blank screen means nothing until you've actually fished the spot. Now let's talk about the marks themselves. The idea that fish are not always marked is crucial. We've all seen the videos and the marketing. We're trained to look for those big, beautiful, clearly defined arcs or thick, colorful lines that scream fish. But winter fish rarely give you that beautiful signature. Because their metabolism is so low, their movements are minimal. They might not even be moving enough to paint a classic arc on a traditional sonar. More importantly, their swim bladder, which is what your sonar primarily picks up, can be less dense and reflective when the fish is inactive. The result? That trophy walleye might show up as a tiny, faint flicker. It might be a super thin red line that you easily dismiss as bottom clutter or interference. If you're only looking for the classic, obvious marks, you are going to overlook 90% of the fish that are actually down there. You have to retrain your eyes to look for subtlety, and for any change, no matter how small, from the baseline you're seeing on the screen. Let's move on to something more technical, the cone angle deception. Your transducer doesn't see everything. It sends out a signal in a cone shape, like an upside-down ice cream cone or the beam of a flashlight. The deeper the water, the wider the circle it sees on the bottom. But in typical ice fishing depths, say 20 feet of water, that circle might only be 6 or 7 feet wide. Think about that. You are staring at a tiny 7-foot wide snapshot of the world, a massive school of crappies holding just outside that cone, maybe 5 feet to your left or right, will be completely invisible to you. Your screen will be blank. This gives you a totally false sense of confidence that you have cleared an area. You drill 3 holes in a line, 10 feet apart, and check them all with your sonar. You see nothing. You conclude the whole area is dead. But in reality, the fish could have been sitting right in between your holes the entire time. The cone angle shows you a tiny piece of the puzzle, not the whole picture. Here's a concept that many anglers completely ignore. Winter fish are incredibly spooky. The world under the ice is a very quiet, muffled place. Now imagine you drill a loud hole directly above a school of perch, and then you drop a transducer that starts emitting a constant ping, ping, ping sound into the water column. To us, it's silent. To the fish, with their sensitive lateral lines, it's like someone turned on a machine in their living room. In the summer, active, aggressive fish might not care. They might even be attracted to the commotion. But in winter, neutral or negative fish will do the opposite. They will often slowly, subtly move away from that constant, unnatural noise. You might mark them for a second when you first drop the transducer, and then watch as they mysteriously fade away. You didn't do anything wrong with your lure. The electronics themselves may have pushed the fish away before you even had a chance. We have become obsessed with finding fish, and we've forgotten how to find habitat. We're guilty of ignoring bottom composition. We drop the transducer, and our eyes are glued to the middle of the water column, searching for those suspended marks. We totally ignore the most important piece of information the sonar is giving us, what the bottom looks like. Is it a thick, soft return indicating mud or silt? Is it a thin, bright, sharp return indicating rock or sand? Most importantly, are there transitions? An area where mud turns to rock is a fish magnet. A subtle change in hardness is where food lives and where predator fish will patrol. You should be using your sonar to paint a mental picture of the bottom. Find the structure first, the weed edge, the rock pile, the drop-off. Fishing a blank screen over excellent structure is infinitely more productive than chasing a single, random mark over a barren mud flat. The sonar's greatest strength is as a map-making tool, not a fish spotting tool. This leads directly to the problem with hole hopping. Modern electronics have created a generation of impatient anglers. The strategy is to drill dozens of holes, then run around dropping the transducer in each one for 5 to 10 seconds. If you don't see a fish, you don't fish it. This is a deeply flawed approach. First, as we've discussed, the fish might be there but not marking. Second, and more importantly, you never give the fish a chance to find you. When you drop a lure down, it needs time to attract fish. The vibrations, the flash, the scent, these things take time to draw in curious, lethargic fish from the surrounding area. By only spending 10 seconds looking at a screen, you're assuming the fish are sitting directly under the hole, waiting for you. That's rarely the case. You need to drop your lure, give it a few minutes of jigging and let it do its job. Your presence might be the very thing that calls the fish in, but you'll never know if you pull up and leave after a quick look. Okay, so what about when you do see a fish? Let's talk about misinterpreting suspended fish. You drop down and there it is, a big, beautiful red line suspended 10 feet off the bottom in 30 feet of water. This is the moment we all live for. You spend the next 45 minutes dropping every lure in your box on this fish. You try different colors, different jigging cadences, and nothing. The fish just sits there, completely ignoring you. Here's the hard truth. Suspended fish in the dead of winter are often the most inactive, uncatchable fish in the lake. They are in a neutral or negative mood, just conserving energy. Active, feeding fish are more often found relating to structure near the bottom. By fixating on that easy suspended mark, you can waste huge chunks of your valuable fishing time on a fish that was never, ever going to bite. It's often better to ignore that suspended mark and focus on fishing the bottom in the same area. This brings us to the great baitfish lie. You're hole hopping and you hit the jackpot. Your screen lights up like a Christmas tree with a massive cloud of baitfish. Your heart starts pounding. This has to be the spot, right? Where there's bait, there are predators. Well, yes and no. Often predator fish like walleye or pike will be on the edges of these giant bait balls, not right in the middle of them. They use the perimeter to ambush their prey. So if you're dropping your lure directly into the thickest part of the bait cloud, you might be in the wrong spot. Furthermore, sometimes you find the bait ball after the predators have already fed and moved off to digest. You've arrived at the restaurant after the dinner rush is over. Seeing bait is a good sign that you are in a productive area, but it's not a guarantee that feeding fish are there at that exact moment. It's a clue, not the final destination. Now for the newest technology and perhaps the biggest trap of all, the over-reliance on live forward-facing sonar. Tools like LiveScope, MegaLive, and Panoptics are incredible, but they can also be a huge crutch. Anglers get so mesmerized by the live video game on the screen that they forget the fundamentals of fishing. They chase individual blips around trying to snipe a single fish instead of systematically breaking down a piece of structure. They stop paying attention to their surroundings, to the weather, to what their lure is actually doing. They become screen watchers instead of anglers. When the technology is doing all the finding for you, your own watercraft skills, your intuition, your ability to read a lake, they all start to atrophy. It's a powerful tool, but it's very easy to become so dependent on it that you can't catch fish without it. And even with it, if you're not interpreting it correctly, you're just playing a very expensive game. Let's talk about something your sonar can't see at all, the weather factor. A major cold front can roll through and completely shut down the bite. Fish don't just stop eating, they physically change their location and behavior. They might push into the thickest weeds they can find. They might tuck themselves so tight to a rock pile that they are indistinguishable from the structure. Some fish, like walleyes, will even burrow themselves into a soft, muddy bottom to wait out the pressure change. Your $2,000 sonar, with all its power and fancy features, will not see a walleye that is half buried in the silt. You will scan right over it, mark the spot as empty, and move on, leaving behind a fish that might have been catchable later in the day. You have to fish the conditions, not just the screen. If a big front just passed, you should be fishing the thickest cover you can find, regardless of what the sonar says. This one is so simple, yet so many people miss it. We are guilty of ignoring our own lure. Our eyes are laser-focused on the top two-thirds of the screen, desperately searching for those incoming red lines that signify a fish. We completely forget to watch the bottom third of the screen where our own lure is. Your sonar is an incredible feedback tool for your presentation. Is your jigging cadence too aggressive? Is it too subtle? Watch your lure on the screen. Now watch what happens when a fish does appear. Does it rush in when you jig aggressively? Or does it show interest only when you let the lure sit perfectly still? The sonar allows you to see how fish are reacting to your presentation in real time. This is arguably more valuable than just seeing if a fish is there or not. You can learn what the fish want on that particular day, which is information you can use to catch fish all over the lake, even in holes where you don't mark them first. Let's dig deeper into the dead zone. I mentioned it before, but it deserves its own block because it is responsible for more missed fish than probably any other factor. The dead zone is the area at the very bottom of the water column that your sonar simply cannot read accurately. The return signal from the bottom itself is so strong that it effectively blinds the sonar to anything within the first 6 inches to a foot above it. It's like trying to see a firefly right next to a giant spotlight. Now, where do the biggest, oldest, wisest fish in the lake spend most of their time during the winter? That's right. Giant jumbo perch, trophy walleyes, and big pike are belly-to-the-bottom creatures in the cold. They are perfectly positioned in your sonar's #1 blind spot. You can have an entire school of football-sized perch sitting directly under your hole, and your expensive electronics will show you a perfectly flat, lifeless bottom. This is why you must always fish a new hole for at least a few minutes, paying special attention to the bottom no matter what your screen tells you. Here's a habit technology has broken. We forget historical data. We pull up to a spot, a point, or an underwater hump that we know from years of experience always holds fish in late winter. We drill our holes, drop the transducer, and see absolutely nothing. Our modern brain, conditioned by the electronics, says, well, they're not here today, and we leave. We let a 10-second glance at a screen override years of accumulated knowledge. This is a massive error. The fish might be pushed tight to the bottom. They might be temporarily located just off the edge of the structure. They might be inactive at that moment, but are planning to move up to feed in an hour. Your sonar should be used to confirm what you already suspect about a spot, or to help you pinpoint the exact location on the structure. It should not be the single deciding factor that makes you abandon a proven high percentage area. Trust your experience. Trust your maps. And use the sonar. Let's discuss a different kind of pressure, fishing pressure. On any popular, easy-to-access lake, the fish get educated very quickly. They learn to associate certain sounds with danger. The roar of an auger is a dinner bell for some, but a major warning sign for others. And that constant high-frequency ping-ping-ping of a transducer is another one of those warning signs. On a heavily pressured body of water, fish may have learned that this specific sound is often followed by lures and hooks. It's not a stretch to believe that wary, older fish will actively move away from the sound of your sonar. You are literally announcing your presence to every fish within range. This is another reason why stealth tactics like drilling your holes and then letting the area quiet down for a while before you even start fishing can be so effective. Sometimes the best use of your sonar is to turn it off. This next point is for everyone who takes their sonar out of the box and just starts using it. You are likely ignoring your gain and sensitivity settings. Most anglers just leave their unit on the auto setting and trust it to figure things out. Auto is designed to give you the cleanest, easiest to read picture, but clean is not always what you want. In winter, when you're looking for those incredibly faint signals from lethargic fish pressed to the bottom, you often need to manually crank up the gain. Your screen will get more cluttered with noise, but within that noise you might suddenly be able to see those whisper-thin lines that indicate a massive, inactive perch. Conversely, in shallow water with lots of vegetation, you may need to turn the gain down to reduce the clutter so you can see your lure. Leaving your sonar on auto is like driving a high-performance sports car but leaving the transmission in automatic. You are giving up a huge amount of control and fine-tuning capability. We need to make a fundamental mental shift. You're not looking for arcs, you're looking for change. Stop thinking of your sonar as a fish picture machine. Start thinking of it as a change detection machine. Instead of hunting for that perfect bright yellow arc that screams walleye, train your eyes to notice any tiny deviation from the norm. Did a thin, horizontal line suddenly appear where there was nothing before? Did the bottom return flicker for just a second? Did the color of the bottom change from yellow to red, indicating a harder bottom? These are the real clues. This is the stuff that matters. Being a good sonar user is like being a detective. You are looking for subtle clues and piecing together a story. You're not a security guard just waiting for an obvious alarm bell to go off. Look for the small stuff. The change is what tells you something is down there. It's rarely a perfect picture. Let's bust the water column myth. This is the idea that fish are just hanging out at one specific depth, and if you check that depth, you've checked the spot. We drop the transducer, we look from the top to the bottom for about 15 seconds, and if we see nothing, we move on. But fish, even in winter, are not static. A school of crappies, for example, might be holding tight to the bottom in a neutral state. Then, for a brief 10-minute window, they might rise 10 feet up in the water column to feed on zooplankton. If your quick sonar check happens 5 minutes before or 5 minutes after this feeding window, you will see a completely empty screen and assume there are no crappies there. You missed them. This is where patience at the hole is so critical. By staying put and fishing for a while, you give yourself a chance to be there when one of these brief feeding windows opens up. You can't just do a quick drive-by with your sonar and expect to understand the full story of what's happening below the ice. This might be the most important point of all. You have to stop ignoring your own instincts. You know the feeling. You walk up to a spot on the lake, a subtle point, a fallen tree near the shore, an inside turn on the weed line. It just feels right. It looks fishy. Every ounce of your angler's intuition is screaming at you that there should be fish here. But you drop your sonar and the screen is blank. So what do? Too often, we sigh, trust the black box, and walk away. We let the technology overrule our own gut feeling. The best anglers in the world have an almost supernatural ability to combine technology with their own fish sense. They use the sonar to confirm things, but they don't let it be their boss. If you have a strong gut feeling about a spot, fish it. Give it a solid 20 or 30 minutes. More often than not, your intuition will be rewarded with a fish that never, ever showed up on the screen. Here is a simple mechanical problem that can ruin your entire day. Your transducer is not hanging straight. This happens all the time. Your transducer cable gets a bit of ice on it, or it gets a kink from being wrapped up, and it causes the transducer itself to hang at a slight angle in the hole. You think you're looking at the bottom directly beneath you, but the cone is actually pointed a few feet off to the side. So you drop your lure straight down and you jig it. You see your lure on the screen, but it looks faint, and it's off to the side of the display. Or worse, you don't see your lure at all. You assume the sonar is malfunctioning or the fish just aren't there. In reality, you are fishing in one spot and your sonar is looking at another. It's an incredibly frustrating problem with a simple solution. Always take a second to look down the hole and visually confirm that your transducer is hanging perfectly level and straight. Let's bring this all together with the most important mission statement. Your real goal is finding structure, not fish. We have to reprogram our brains. The primary purpose of a sonar in winter is not to show you a live image of a fish waiting to be caught. The purpose is to help you build a detailed, three-dimensional mental map of the unseen world beneath your feet. Use it to find that hidden rock pile. Use it to trace the deep edge of the weed line. Use it to locate that tiny depression in an otherwise flat bottom. Find the fish's house, find their kitchen, find their highway. Once you have identified these high-percentage pieces of structure, you can fish them with confidence, whether you see marks or not. I will tell you right now, spending your day fishing a blank screen over a prime piece of structure is 1,000 times more effective than chasing random, isolated marks across a barren, featureless wasteland. Find the spot, then fish the spot. So, what's the final verdict? Is your sonar a liar? Well, maybe not a liar, but it definitely doesn't tell you the whole truth. It's a phenomenal tool. It's the best tool we have for understanding the bottom, for seeing our lure, and for confirming when fish are active and present. But it is an absolutely terrible tool for one specific job, telling you with 100% certainty that a spot is empty. The biggest mental shift you can make in your ice fishing journey is to stop using your sonar to look for fish and start using it to look for fishy spots. Trust your instincts, trust your map, and use the sonar as a ground truthing device to understand the habitat. The moment it all clicks is the moment you decide to fish a great-looking spot for 30 minutes, even though your screen is totally blank. And then you feel that thump and set the hook into a monster walleye that never once made a blip on your screen. That's when you'll truly understand. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. If this helped, hit that like button and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now for my question to you, what's the biggest fish you've ever caught from a spot your sonar told you was completely empty? Share your story in the comments below. Let's hear them.